born and raised in Tampa. I'm a Florida native. I actually was with a partner. I had a husband that we had built a life together, was with him over 11 years. So my stepson and my partner passed. I have all these things, literally boom, boom, boom. But I was very fortunate that I had a support system that was like, what do you need today? Not like, how are you doing? That was never the question. It was like, what do you need today? It's really trying to reframe the experiences and stuff that happens in our lives. The one thing that I hate when people say is,
Amani channel, this is Seeds of Awakening. My next guest, Stephanie Olivo, is a Tampa native, and back in 2017, she suffered an unimaginable loss. It took hours and hours of therapy for her to even begin the healing process, but she came to understand that loss was really just a lesson, and now she helps people online through her platform just by sharing her story. So Stephanie is with us now. I want to thank you so much for taking a few moments, Stephanie, out of your busy day. I'm sure you have things going on there.
absolutely. No, thank you so much for having me. I love that, Bijou connected us. This is awesome. So I'm very excited.
Definitely thanks for participating. I'm just getting this thing going. So your participation is definitely important to our success. And thank you so much. So to start off with, I read your bio and it's kind of gut-wrenching. So I know you live in Atlanta now, but you're from Tampa, Florida originally. Why don't you tell the story of what your life used to look like?
Yeah, so basically born and raised in Tampa. I'm a Florida native, which is very rare in Tampa. Everyone usually kind of comes from other places. But yeah, born and raised. My family's from South America and they went to came to Ybor City, I think in like 71, 69, 71. So they've been there a long time. We've been there a long time. And yeah, so kind of a little bit of history of myself. So I actually was with a partner. I had a husband that we had built a life together, was with him over 11 years, and, worked together, lived together, which sometimes is not the greatest thing, but, it always takes a special person to be able to do that. And yeah, I am currently living in Atlanta. But so kind of reason why I'm really glad that we connected is there's a lot of things that people go through, different experiences and stuff like that. My particular one was, so my stepson and my partner passed. So in 2016 my stepson actually had an overdose, and then literally it was a year and 2 months to the day my husband took his life. So kind of having all these really tough experiences, you know in a lot of cases, some people are like, okay, I'm just, this is, why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? And to be truthful and honest, yeah, I was like that. I was, for a little bit, why did this happen to me? And then I kind of turned it around and said, okay, why did this happen to me and what can I do with it? It's really trying to reframe the experiences and stuff that happens in our lives, especially when it comes to overdose, when it comes to suicide. And it's something that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And for me, I was like, okay, I have all these things, literally boom, boom, boom. Like, all right, what do I do with this? Like, what is, not so much what is my purpose, but how can I help people that have never dealt with overdose, doesn't know what suicidal tendencies look like, with somebody who has severe depression and is clinically depressed, like what does that actually look like from the outside in, and how can we help people kind of recognize that and be able to try to help. And sometimes, you know being preventative is the thing that we want to do, and sometimes it's not successful, especially in my case. But it's having those conversations and those difficult conversations. And I was offered an opportunity to write a chapter in a book, and I did a lot of healing. I went to traditional therapy. At first for me it wasn't really my thing. It wasn't not that it wasn't for me. I don't think I was really in that state of mind to be able to accept that kind of help. So I ended up going into Reiki. A girlfriend of mine was doing Reiki, so I started doing that. And that really kind of helped me open up. And now I started in This happened all in 2016 and 2017. And I started Reiki in 2019, and I still continue to do it. And I think now, a few years later, almost 5 years later, I'm now in a better state of mind to be able to like, okay, I will look into traditional therapy. I call it, quote unquote traditional therapy, and see maybe there's different tools out there to be able to help me kind of not only deal what in the past, but also deal with the present and move towards that future.
So first of all, I want to say that I'm so sorry for your loss and
I
losing your
appreciate that.
husband and
Thank
your
you.
son. That has to be very difficult. How did you kind of cope with all that initially? Like, what were you thinking? What were you feeling initially when all that was going on?
Definitely had feelings of why wasn't I enough? That why wasn't I enough for you to stay and be with me and live our life and whatnot. The one thing that I did notice with his name was Dirk, with Dirk was that there was just so much sadness. There was not wanting to shower, not wanting to go to work, and we had a really large business. I was like, I go, we got this, we got this, and that kind of motivation of and like that kind of like push forward that my dad always has taught me, dust yourself off and just keep going, which is really great. But when it comes to situations like this, it's not a feasible task. You can't just like, set it and forget it. You have to deal with the emotions and with the things that are happening in that person's life. But I think maybe my naivete of the whole situation. I've never dealt with somebody, so we were trying all the things and trying to figure out how can we can help. And at first, it was more of not forget it, but like kind of move through it. Like, what do we have to deal with to kind of get past it? And you know, the funny part is after kind of saying that and thinking that to him, now that I'm in this grieving and healing journey, because it's ongoing, it's always going to be there. It's something that's really forever. It's thinking of like, okay, well, I wasn't really thinking properly, but that's okay because I didn't know any better. You
Yeah.
only know what you know, and I think now is it's really, really important for us to talk about these difficult situations, because providing tools to other people, whatever it is, whether it's journaling, whether it's Reiki, whether it's therapy, whether it's exercise, whatever that thing is that'll help you move through these emotions, and tap into those triggers that sometimes you don't even know that are going to be there. It could be the smell of something, the sight of something, a color, a song, whatever that thing is, puts you back into that state. And there's a lot of studies out there that your mind doesn't know that event is past. When you think about it, and it basically puts you back into that state of mind that you were in when it happened. So it's kind of dealing with those tools and stuff. And this is all stuff that I've learned in the last few years. I had no idea, and nobody really talks about that stuff. So for me, it was like, I go, well, I'm going to talk about all the things that I've learned in my healing journey, and maybe somebody might pick something up and might work for them, and that'll be great. And if it's the one person who picks it up is me, then even better. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So yeah,
hindsight is always 2020. You can look back and say,
always.
"Oh, if I would have known that, I would have done this differently." But I mean, at the time, you might think, "Oh, just shake it off," or for folks who
Right.
aren't dealing with like mental health issues or depression, it can be something like, "Well, just make yourself happy. Why don't you just be happy?" And it's not always as easy as that.
Correct.
So yeah, you sounds like you've done a lot of self-healing, a lot of reflection over the years.
Definitely, definitely. And it's an ongoing thing. There's stuff that from even childhood that I had no idea was even a thing, that was kind of hidden in the background, kind of thing, from the dust yourself off and keep going time frame, you know what I mean? And I think that's okay. There's a lot of people that kind of sometimes feel a little bit of angst and embarrassment, and a lot of fear. Fear is a big thing, fear of, if I tap into this, or if I do this, kind of therapy or whatever that is, this thing to help me heal, like, what are people going to think? honestly, for me, I'm just like, do what's best for you because you're the one, you're your own judge. You know what I mean? And don't create the stories that haven't happened yet. Because a lot of us do that, especially myself. Like, what if I do this and this? And, think about some crazy thing. And that's just, I think that's just in the imagination. You know what I mean? It's not the reality because we're telling a story that hasn't happened, you
Hmm.
know?
So you went like the Reiki non-traditional route. How did that help you in terms of your healing? What was the difference with that versus the traditional therapy that you were going through that kind of made a difference for you?
So it's a lot of energy healing. So I haven't practiced it, so I don't really know the kind of ins and outs of it, but I deal with a Reiki master. She's a certified Reiki master. I've been working with her for forever, and I do a podcast with her as well. And she just kind of like just taps into feeling because we're all energy. Dr. Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you're familiar with
Oh,
him.
oh yeah, come on.
Yeah, love who doesn't
I'm
love
a
Dr.
self-professed
Joe?
space cadet.
Same. So I was always, thinking about him and reading about him and kind of learning, that we're all energy, whatever the energy that you are, that's what you're attracting. And I think I really kind of love that. And he always used to say, and this is a kind of a funny story with her in one of the sessions that I had. I was like, oh, I was talking to, oh, I mean, I was listening to Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he was talking about, finding your ideal partner. And he's like, think about all the things that you want in that partner, write it down, bullet point, whatever. Look at that list and become that list. Because the fact of the matter is that somebody from the outside is not going to make you whole. You have to be whole. Like the analogy was, you're the whole sundae. Everybody else is just the cherry on top. And I was like, I love that. So I was talking to her about this, and she's like, well, what's your list? And I gave her all my lists and all these things, and she goes, okay, that sounds good. How about emotionally available? I was like, yeah, like, of course you want somebody who's emotionally available because, I mean, why, why be in a relationship if that's not the possibility? So it's just, kind of, it's a lot of a sounding board. And I'm sure, I know traditional therapy is that way as well, but it's like tapping into that energy that, I'm a empath for sure, 1,000%. And I didn't realize what that was until I actually started going with her. I was like, sometimes I feel really drained when I'm this person or hanging out with these people. I just literally want to go home and go to bed. And yeah, those are called energy suckers. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
They're
And then
vampires.
the vampires, right? So she kind of explained all that stuff, and just learning about like what all of that entails, and how to kind of align yourself and kind of bring back and open up the spaces and clear out that negativity or whatever that feeling of emotion or something that's happening, in your chakras and stuff. It's interesting, and I never thought that they would work for me. So I had gone to different sessions with her and stuff like that. And meditation was a big practice of it. And it was just something that just really, I don't know, I just really aligned with it, and it worked for me, and it's still working for me. I still, use a lot of the tools that she taught me on the daily. So it's really cool. I highly recommend it, whether it's her or with somebody else. I think it's always important, especially to try out different methods of healing, because you don't know what you're gonna really align with, number one, and what's gonna work for you. And I think the most important thing for sure is do something that you're going to do consecutively. Like, you're going to want to learn more, do more, and that you're actually going to practice. I always make fun of the situation. She's like, meditation practice. She's like, that word at the end, practice, you got to do it.
They practice medicine. Why not practice meditation, right? It's
Exactly.
every day you got to learn how to quiet your mind and let your thoughts pass and not get upset when you do get distracted by yourself. And yeah,
Hmm.
it is a practice, definitely. So,
Absolutely.
so how did meditation, I guess it was the Reiki and the meditation that you kind of did conjointly. What did you previously, were you into meditation, and how did that kind of come into the picture?
No, I had that with her. I had no idea. I mean, I had heard about meditation. I've heard about Reiki. I heard about all the things. She does a really cool practice. She kind of mixes a lot of different modalities. to kind of make her own. And she kind of, takes a little here, takes a little there, which is really cool. And I think it's really important too, like kind of going back to meditation in general. It's everyone thinks it's like sitting still and clearing your mind. It can be that 1,000%, but
Hmm.
it can also be coloring. It could be journaling. It could be walking around the
Yep.
park, listening to music, like whatever that kind of distraction, if you will,
Gets
to
you just
kind
to quiet the
of
mind and just go
just to
within and just
quiet your
focus on
mind.
yourself. Yep.
Yeah, like
That awareness.
that can be your meditation. It doesn't like meditation, I look at it as a big umbrella or a big tree. You can put all the different leaves and do all the different things because whatever you're going to want to do and practice, like that can be your form of meditation.
Great. So what has all this experience led you to now? Like, what are you doing now?
So I am, as I mentioned, I started a podcast. So I was really nervous. I did not want to do it.
Are you
Because
afraid of
I
putting yourself
think
out, afraid of putting yourself out there?
1,000%, putting yourself out there and that fear factor
The
of
rejection and folks are looking at me crazy. Like, yeah.
all of that, all of that.
Hmm.
What are you talking about? What are you doing? Like, why does anybody want to hear what you want to say? Like, what you want to have to say. But I think it was more of like, if nobody listens to it, I don't care. I'm getting my stuff out there. And I think it's really important, to talk about these things, because is there's studies out there, um, that if you hold it in, it becomes that disease comes a dis-ease. You know what I mean? And for me, it was always like I go talk, 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 and talk some more. So if I'm talking on the podcast and it's my own and nobody listens to it, like at least I'm getting my stuff
At
out
least I'm
there.
talking to myself.
Exactly. Like I'm okay with that. If nobody listens, that's fine. But we've been very fortunate in the last, we're now 2 years in, August was 2 years. We have a following, we have people, responding and kind of like reacting to some of the episodes and stuff like that. So it's been really, really a blessing. And yeah, just trying to get awareness out there of, just telling your stories, really. At first it was going to be about grief and healing and different tactics and stuff like that. But I think the more that I'm kind of moving through the motions of my own healing, it's more of having others tell their stories, like
Hmm.
what you're saying and what I'm saying might be the same, but how you say it and how I say it are going to be different and they're going to resonate differently with different people. So I think it's always so important for all of us to tell our stories, no matter how difficult or how, oh, it's not that big of a deal, but somebody might be going through that similar situation or something like it, then be like, oh, that's a great idea. I should look into that, or maybe I might try that to help them out.
So in talking to you, like during the chakras and talking about the spiritual energy work, Riki, it sounds like you're definitely on a spiritual path. Were you always on a spiritual path, or did this sort of situation kind of open your eyes up to a different way of thinking?
I think I kind of always may have been, from a religion standpoint, I was raised Catholic. Um, but for me, I was always interested in different religions. I was always interested kind of in that bigger picture of like, why do they believe in this and not this? What is this? Like, what are their traditions? Like, what are their kind of different things and stuff like that. So I always wanted to learn about that and history. I'm a big history buff, so I'm always, looking into different cultures and all that. But I think I was always maybe tapped into, but I just don't think I knew what it was
Yeah, we're
until
always,
somebody
always
kind
tapped
of,
in. Yep. Somebody
yeah,
sort of open your eyes or something kind of shakes you up or maybe.
yeah, for sure.
Yep.
For sure. So, yeah, it's been amazing. I'm very blessed that I have a really, really good support system, that I've had really amazing mentors to kind of just guide me in the right direction and just open me up to different opportunities and different possibilities, really, because I don't think honestly I would have gone to this direction, honestly, because I really didn't know like that was a thing.
Hmm.
So it's been pretty cool.
So for the folks that are a part of your community, how have they been able to be helped, or how have you sort of been able to guide them down there? I assume they're people who've dealt with loss in their families. How are you helping them out?
I think it's a lot of them just kind of respond of different episodes and stuff that we've had. Like, yeah, that's how I was feeling. That's what I was saying. It resonates like that. And a lot of folks have kind of said, it's really important that you just keep doing what you're doing. Like whatever you're
Hmm.
doing, like just keep doing it. And
Right.
that for me has been super humbling because sometimes, I always feel, not always, but for a majority of the time, I do feel like I go, what am I doing? Like what, this is like, do people really want to hear this? Like, is it something that I'm really, helping people with? But at the end of the day, like every episode, I go into it sometimes with that kind of like resistance. But after that conversation or after that interview or after, sometimes those solos, which are so hard,
Yeah.
I feel better. So, for me, I'm like, okay, something's working. Whatever that something is, like, let's just keep doing it and see where it goes.
Yeah, so just in full transparency, me and my wife lost twins back in like 2006. And
Wow.
about a year later, I just created like a little documentary, a video on YouTube, just to sort of tell our story. That was very cathartic, and there are folks who left comments, and it doesn't get as many views now, but afterwards, it's very relieving and sort of like part of the healing process just to share our story and just knowing there were,
Absolutely.
all sorts of folks who message us and say, "I didn't know about your loss," and help us sort of move past it. So, definitely storytelling is definitely a big part of the healing process. Definitely.
Absolutely. And I want to kind of go back to what you just said. So loss. And this is something that I've been kind of learning on my own. For myself, I don't believe it's a loss.
Right.
I think it's a learning because we learn from them while they're here and we also learn about ourselves when they're gone. So it's you're never really losing something. Physically, yes, they're not here, but you're learning, how to deal with certain things, how different emotions and what they've actually taught you. So, I my condolences for sure, because that is to lose a child is tough. My stepson, even though he was not biologically mine, he was, my husband at the time was older and he was a little closer to my age and we were together for so long, but he was my family,
Yeah.
so having that, it was tough. And I see a lot of folks also that have lost children, and I commend them because I also had somebody who lost a child, and it was too hard. It was just too hard for them. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely is tough. We had
Hmm.
another son afterwards, so that kind of helps ease the pain a little bit. But those originals are always like it's never irreplaceable, definitely.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
understanding that life is about experiences and about learning about yourself is really what life is about. That sort of helps you kind of understand why things happen. And it's not understanding why things happen, just knowing that everything happens for a reason. It's all for the betterment of our experience, really.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's also learning how to deal with certain situations. So
Hmm.
I think for us that have gone through such type of experiences, I think it's really important for us, like you did, to tell your story, like myself, to tell our story and to share with people, because it's hard enough and you feel alone. You feel like I'm the only one, at the when things happen like that, I'm the only one that this is happening to. Like, how do I do this? I don't know anybody else who has a similar experience, and you feel alone. You really
Hmm.
do. And that was such one of the biggest kind of eye-opening things for myself. I was like, I'm just gonna see what happens and tell my story. And the inundation of messages that I got after those first couple of episodes, it was just like, okay, I'm not alone. You
Yeah, it's
know, uh,
validation, right? It's
it's
validation. It
mhm,
lets you know that you're on the right track.
absolutely.
So would you say
Absolutely.
this experience led you to like any sort of spiritual awakening? Do you feel like that's sort of what you had through this tragedy?
I think it opened my eyes up to a lot of different things. I'm not as combative when it comes to certain things, and I think it's been a real eye-opening experience of not sweating that small stuff, um, and not getting, or trying not to get so overwhelmed about, minute things and kind of not so much insignificant things, but things that are not going to make a difference in your world kind of thing. You know what I mean? And just kind of like just letting things, be like, if that's going to be the decision, okay, great. So that rejection is a redirection to something else, and kind of like changing the mindset of changing, the words that I use, like not trying to say loss and not saying should, like I should have done this, I should have done that, kind of reframing the words that we speak, outwardly and also to ourselves. So I think that has been the biggest real change for myself in these last probably few years, for sure.
Thanks for sharing that with us. So I normally wrap up by asking a few similar questions, but your story is so unique. Like, I'm trying to think about how I can reframe them. So just let's start off with like, what do you feel like your mission is here on Earth?
I think really just to tell stories and share stories, bring other people on to share their stories, and yeah, just kind of bring people together in terms of providing different tools of things that I've experienced, that I've worked with. I'm one to not push things on anybody that I haven't done myself. That's a really big thing for me. So I always try to, do the whatever that new healing thing is. I was like, oh, let's try it. Sound therapy has been really, really cool. That has been one that I've really resonated with and really has helped me. I have a buddy of mine, he's in Asheville, and he actually does, it's like gong therapy. So he has this like wild contraption, and it has gongs kind of all over, and he like bangs them and does like a series of kind
A
of
sequence of
sound.
sounds. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
I knew what you were saying.
And yeah, and I was just like, I go, wow, I felt so elevated, and I was afterwards, and I was just like, oh my God, that's so powerful. And then literally from 1 second to the next, like I just was like crying, and I was like, oh my gosh. He's like, yeah, that's what happens sometimes. I was like, holy shit, what is going on here? And then I was like, I go, you guys have to try it. I don't know where you are, but like have him come, like hire him, like he's fantastic. Like it's just so it was just so incredibly powerful. That, sometimes you try things and you're like, okay, yeah, that was cool. It was not really anything. But
Wasn't
then
for me. Yeah.
sometimes, holy moly, it's just
Hmm.
it's wild. It was just really, I was just that impression that it left on me. I always talk about it every time I can. So
Wow. So the next question is, has your perspective on life and death changed through your experience?
not really. Which is kind of interesting because I've always thought about that there was always something after our physical body is kind of, done when she's done. And it just kind of really reinforced that for me. Whatever that is out there, who knows? So I think for myself, it's just trying to get the the best out of this life and leaving a lasting impression, whatever that impression is, whether it's for myself or for my niece and my nephew, my family, my friends, whatever. Yeah, just trying to leave a lasting impression and doing the best that I can with what I got, you know.
Yep.
So
Excellent. So the last question is, what would be your advice to anyone who's going through grief or grieving the loss of a loved one?
what would be my advice? Uh Honestly, I would say when you're feeling down, and this is something that I think is kind of not really talked about, is so I what I would do is I would talk to myself and have a conversation about what I was feeling, but I would record it. So I would record it, and the reason why I think I did that was really not so much to track my progress, but to kind of like, all right, if I'm talking about one thing or certain things like repetitively, I'm like, all right, well, why is that coming up, and what is that making me feel? The what's and the whys are the really, really two really powerful small little questions that we can ask ourselves, is like, why is that triggering me, and what do I feel? And kind of like to help pinpoint, and when you're going through it, you're going through it, and to to really think about that, you kind of have to kind of go through your own process. However long that takes, it's gonna take what it takes. You know what I mean? The one thing that I hate when people say is like time heals everything. No, it doesn't. It's you just you just garner the tools
Kind of deal with you kind of deal with it, but
to
yeah.
be able to, yeah, to be able to deal with whatever you're dealing with. Um, a support system is always important. And when you're feeling, you just don't know what you're feeling, like write it down, just write things down, like whatever that is, whatever you're feeling in that moment, just kind of like write it down just to get it out. Because holding all that stuff in is what causes that discomfort, what it causes the bad thoughts, the I feel alone, I'm the only one that's going through this kind of thing, and
Mhm.
it's not easy. And I'm not one here to say like, oh, this is amazing, this is easy, oh, I got through it, whatever. There were sometimes I didn't want to go to out of bed, I didn't want to eat or whatever, but I was very fortunate that I had a support system that was like, what do you need today? Not like, how are you doing? That was never the question. It was like, what do you need today? Do you need groceries? Do you need, like my sister was my biggest, like, just crutch really for a time when I needed it. And I think that's okay. Not to be fearful of asking for help. I know you sometimes, especially for myself, you don't want to feel like a burden. I don't want to bring this on, or I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that to you know burden my family, my friends, whoever. But it's okay to ask for help. I think that's one of the biggest things for sure.
Great advice there. So
Thank you.
Stephanie, would you like to plug your podcast? Where can people go to learn more about you, to find more information out
Yeah,
about you and your
thank you.
story?
For sure. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook. So it's Discontinued Now What? That's the name of the podcast. Reason kind of the naming, I was in medical device sales for a really, really long time. And DC, apostrophe D is discontinued in the medical world. And that was also the initials of my late husband. His name was Dirk Christian. So it kind of like, that was my sister's idea. So I was like, I think I'm going to use it. I was like, but discontinued. I was like, well, now what? That life is over,
Yeah.
that story, or that great, that life is not going to continue the way that it was. So like, now what do I do? Like, what the heck? So that's kind of why we called it. And yeah, we're on all the different platforms: Spotify, Apple, same name, Discontinued Now What? Yeah, we have myself, Jamie Wareham. She's the Reiki master that I spoke about. She's on the podcast. And yeah, some different interviews with some different amazing folks. So we got to have you on now.
Well, I'd love to be on. So thanks so much for taking some time. You have a wonderful demeanor and wonderful energy about you, and
Appreciate that.
turn this
Thank you.
tragedy into something that can inspire and help others is very admirable. I want to thank you so much for spending a few moments of Seeds of Awakening. Thanks so much, Stephanie.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.